Go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Water Cooler Chat, where we talk about all things Livepeer, whether it's orchestrating, delegating, broadcasting, transcoding, or developing. We're here to ask questions and get answers. Today we did, Shan again is not able to make it this week, so it'll just be a regular Water Cooler Chat this time around. We'll start with quick introductions and jump right into the topics. So I'll start with myself. I'm Titan, been running the Titan Node Orchestrator since April 2021. And my topic today is about Video Builder DAO. Made a proposal on the forum last week, and would like to bring that up as a topic and get some feedback. Ben, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Sure. Name is Ben. Been running the Authority Null node for almost 2 years now. No topics here today, but definitely looking forward to talk about the Video Builder DAO.
Very cool. Thank you for joining us. Papa Bear.
Hi, I am Papa Bear, run the Solar Farm Orchestrator. Started that in July of 21, so next month will be 2 years. No specific topic, just here to chime in where I can, and look forward to the chat as always.
Very good. Thank you for joining us. Brad, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Yeah, hey everyone. Brad with Ad Astra Video. Been operating a node since March of 2021. Most recently, tinkering and hacking on the dashboard of selection tests and orchestrated performance. So no specific topic today, but happy to discuss any of the tests I'm doing and help out any way I can.
Yeah, very. Would love to hear an update about the dashboard if you have any. So I'll put that down as your topic. Thomas, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hi. I'm an orchestrator since a week, and I'm here to learn and gain knowledge. Nothing in particular.
Very good. Thank you for joining us again. Frank, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Yeah, good evening. I'm Frank. I'm running Ultima Ratio node since April 21 now, and I have no topic tonight. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey everyone, I'm Mike Z, running the Zode app orchestrator for a year and a half. I wanted to follow up on the topic about Catalyst, Mist, Livepeers, Broadcaster. I really want to get a clear understanding of the architecture in that stack and what it looks like. I want to bring the stack online myself and kind of replicate what the studio team is doing to some degree. So just want to follow up on that conversation, make sure I can get some clarity.
I believe also, I'm not sure if there is a grant or anything for Catalyst documentation. So as you're going through it, you should, if you're going to be doing that process, I think it would be good to keep notes.
I talked about it. I was going to try to give back that stuff as part of a grant to the community. I mean, again, I really want to build a stack that can scale at enterprise level and start to address some of the concerns that, these Web 2 companies who aren't using it, maybe, some barriers that they might be facing. And once I get the stack up, I can really start to, dissect it and look at some of the challenges and the areas where we could probably do some improving. But it all starts with getting that clear picture first.
Definitely. That could be a good recipient of the Video Builder DAO. So love the topic. We'll jump into it a bit later for sure. Thank you for joining us, Mike. Doug, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Yeah, sure. I'm Doug, one of the founders of Livepeer. I can hang for a little while. I was excited to hear people's feedback on the Video Builder DAO. And I love Mike's topic as well. I don't know if the right people are on this call to give you the complete clarity on the architecture of a scalable service on Catalyst that you're looking for. I think you saw that crazy diagram on the orchestrator community call a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I
did. But the goal, the notion of like a group that gets a grant from Video Builder DAO in order to try and make that really easily runnable and easy to stand up a scalable stack sounds awesome. So happy to explore that now or in the future.
Cool. We're gonna keep beating that drum.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are watching on Xenon, go ahead and talk in the chat, and I'll have the chat open, and we can reply to some of those comments. And so let's jump into the first topic, which is Video Builder DAO. I'll start with a general oversight for those who haven't read the blog post about what it is, and then we can get into particulars about it and start pulling it apart to make it an even better proposal. Now, I've been gone this weekend and really busy during the week, so I hadn't had much time to put in much thought into replies and feedback so far. So if I cover that again, hopefully it doesn't mean I don't agree. It's just I haven't got around to it yet. So I'm hoping to get back to a lot of those comments today or tomorrow. So I'll quickly post a link to the forum post in the chat here. But basically, the general idea about the Video Builder DAO is this idea of a tier 2 DAO that's going to be maybe proposed. And what it does is it gets funding from the tier 1 treasury, which is the upgrade coming. I think it's the Delta proposal, which is going to be allowing Livepeer to have a treasury that can be handed out to tier 2 DAOs or grant systems, which then can fund community programs that help the ecosystem. So the Video Builder DAO is a retroactive grant distribution system. So the idea behind it is we want to retroactively give credit or LPT tokens or some sort of recognition to people who have built things on top of Livepeer or tools or apps around Livepeer that generates use or usability or any types of things like this. So I mean, it's quite a long post. I wasn't sure how much detail to put into a pre-proposal, but I figured I might as well add more than less and then allow people to kind of pick apart things. So who here has read it? Has anyone not read it? I think most people, like a lot, I've seen a lot of people react to it. So yeah, the idea is there's going to be this DAO, and I'd like to get some feedback on some things. But before I do start, does anyone want to jump in with some initial thoughts about it or comments about the proposal, pre-proposal?
I'm obviously excited about it. I mean, this is one of the main missing pieces in the Livepeer ecosystem, I think, is just a way to, encourage more people to come together to work on things that generate demand for Livepeer, and they should be owners in this network and they should get tokens in their hands. And, it's hard to do because that's subjective and it's hard to, try and guess in advance who's going to contribute and follow through on their contributions. But this community is really strong in evaluating like what's been built and what's been really useful and where is there a track record of who's helping in a way that can help drive demand. So I think the proposal is great, and there's a lot of things you want feedback on that are just details, but the spirit of this group coming together to work on this is awesome.
Yeah, and to follow up with that, you did post like 2 examples of different protocols, successfully doing it, which is the Optimism retro and the Gitcoin grants round. So I haven't done any research into those yet, so forgive me if I'm a bit off on maybe some standard practices. But I plan to do some more research on how some of these are built out and run properly, or how other people have done them successfully, and then we can implement our own flavor into how we want to structure it. So
yeah, I think one of the questions we had, from last week carried over was basically, how does this formation begin, and like what are some of the criteria that people would qualify? How would they be, allowed into the DAO? Like how do they, what kind of criteria is used to basically get membership or remove members? I mean, I don't know, if there's a removal process or not, but just those kinds of topics are still probably not clear in my head.
Yeah, so that's actually exactly what I wanted to jump into next. So luckily, and just FYI, this was with the help of ChatGPT a lot. So this is not all my writing. Just to give you guys an idea. I don't want to take full credit for this. I basically asked GPT to like put out a plan, and then I just went and filled it in with like details. So, yeah. So some of this might just be like it helped build a structure around what the internet or what AI thinks is a good idea. So I was like, okay, I'll just go with this. So a couple things that I added. I wanted to start off with. No, I was trying to think of this practically as how we could actually maybe like could build it. So we'll start off with the governance structure section. So if you are on the forum post, you can scroll down to like the fourth section, which is governance structure. So yeah, we was going to do a token-based voting system, right? And it would simply be like an ERC20 token, which is just DAO tokens essentially, and it holds a 1 vote per 1 member kind of thing. Does that make sense, or do we want to have some sort of like weighted voting where somebody, maybe orchestrators get 1 vote and video builder people in Discord get 2, and so there's like this, there's say from the orchestrators, but more say from other people. How do we think of that structure?
1 vote per. For me personally, I think 1 vote, no matter what role you hold, is simple and works. But maybe someone disagrees. I don't know.
No, I was gonna say similarly, like keep it simple, right? But again, I tend to be more like a American Constitution. You provide the mechanisms in which changes can happen, right? So like if you go 1 vote, per member, that's great. I think it's simple, but then like who knows what the circumstances may arise in which that may not work, or maybe you want to start delegating your vote, giving your vote to another person. Or so. I mean, again, I can think of probably 100 complicated things to add, but getting started and then being able to, reverse course and change is probably something good to have.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking of this technically because if I'm going to be kind of leading this charge, I want to be able to use tools that I'm familiar with and that I understand. So I'll probably be using third web contracts. These are pre-built contracts around and very easy to deploy, and they even give you an interface on how to interact with the contracts. I've used them before, and it's like amazing. I really like third web ecosystem and the stuff they're doing. And yeah, that's how they have their contracts built out. It's pretty simple, so they don't do overly complicated things, but it would be super simple to launch an ERC20 token on their platform and build it out that way. Same with the governance voting proposal. The contract itself is built right into that. So go ahead.
How does it work with an ERC20 token? Like if you want to change members or, like if someone gets voted out or someone gets voted in, since it's not an NFT, just like, is there like a burn mechanism, like where you take someone's token away, or how does that work?
Yeah, so this is considered, I believe it's called an off-chain DAO. I believe there's like 2 DAOs, one's on-chain, one's off-chain. The off-chain DAO is simply like somebody holds the keys to the castle, but voting happens on-chain, right? So the key of the castle is like, it's pretty much like off-chain DAOs are like your most popular ones that you could probably name, like Uniswap and Arbitrum, and like all these things are technically off-chain DAOs. The only on-chain ones are like MakerDAO and Moloch DAO, I think. So that's like completely on-chain governance where every actionable item actually gets executed on-chain. Whereas off-chain DAOs, you make a vote and then someone with the keys has to go and actually execute what people have voted on, right? So the way Third Web has it built is they're all off-chain DAOs. So the contract owner, which could be appointed by someone or it could be myself, when we can burn someone else's ERC20 token. So if they get removed from the DAO, we just burn their token. and
I
they
see.
lose their voting power. And then we can issue them a token if they receive membership.
And they're non-transferable, right? You can't transfer your token to somebody else, or can you?
That's a good question. I believe in the third web contract, it's a standard ERC20 token, so it is transferable. But
Okay.
Third web. Actually, let me check. I think there might be a check mark for making it non-transferable. Let's see. Token.
Yeah, I think Victor's comment in the forum that he added right before this was you might want to think about making it more of a soul-bound token or SBT, which is like it's not transferable. It could be revoked, but yeah, I don't know if you want people sending governance power around.
I
Right,
wouldn't think so.
especially people who are building software. Like if you're building, you want to basically maintain that notoriety, that accumulation of whatever function you're doing. To transfer that away would just dilute everything.
Yeah, you could also do something, and maybe this is a bit convoluted, but you can tie Discord roles into it as well if you use something like Guild, where only someone with a role actually has the power to vote on-chain or off-chain. And also you can token gate access to a Discord server or third web or whatever as well. So even if someone gets the token, it's transferred to them, they have no power unless they have the role in Discord.
Right. The other thing is, let's say your account gets jeopardized. What if you want to move your voting power to your own wallet in another account, and you want to burn the old wallet anyway? Do we want that functionality? Like I switch between hardware wallets and soft wallets, and I regularly adjust my security measures. So I like all my things to be transferable, just like your lens handle, right? So is it really that much of a benefit to have it soulbound? And I'm only saying this too because I'm just looking at the third web contract. It doesn't allow soulbound ERC20s. So out of I'm just thinking out of simplicity for what I'm able to do. If someone wants to build out this contract that does soulbound NFTs, by all means, go ahead and build that and send me a copy, and I can deploy it, or you can deploy it, or whatever. But just with the tools I have, I don't think I have the skill set to get to that level.
Well, along those lines of like simplicity, it's interesting to keep the framework in mind that like because this is a level 2 sub DAO entity that's making proposals to the treasury, it doesn't have to be from the beginning like a perfect, uncensorable, unstoppable, permissionless on-chain protocol in every way, shape, or form, right? Like you can just view it as one experiment that moves quickly with a small group with clear rules and policies to see if it can be effective at evaluating and distributing LPT to video builders and demand generators on the network. And like, you could do the first round with a very simple set of tools in a small group. And then if it goes well, you can like expand the membership and make it more on-chain and permissionless and introduce all these on-chain credentials and roles and stuff. Like Mike was saying, I think there's benefit to starting with a straightforward framework where you can move fast and see if you can actually like, if it's working.
Yeah,
I like that. Sounds prudent.
Like the third web. I'll post the link here. I don't know if you guys have used third web before, but I like it because it's actually open source using like proper contracts, not contracts where someone else has their fingers in it. So you can just deploy these and they give you an interface to interact with them right here. So you don't have to mess around with building your own apps just out of the box. Obviously, you can make it a lot more complicated and build it out further. But the other thing was, that's just the DAO side. Like, let's say if we did ERC20 tokens that are transferable, and maybe not, but maybe it's not ideal. later on in the post, I talked about how the money would be sent to a multi-sig and then from there sent out. There's actually a split contract in the third web kind of repository here. And what it does is it just receives funds and automatically distributes them to precompiled addresses. And so the DAO, I was thinking, so to eliminate the risk of tokens getting rug pulled, you could just create a totally separate contract for each recipient or each round, which is a split contract, which would get the funding directly from the Livepeer treasury. It would hit that contract and then immediately get split amongst all the recipients as per the DAO vote. So that's actually one way of eliminating the actual financial side risk of this DAO. And then as for the tokens and the voting, those are completely different contracts, which we can manage as a community and get up and running real quick. And, if tokens get burned by accident or if, we can figure that all out, but it's not actually directly correlated to the transfer of the funds, which we could build out a separate contract for each round that we do. So I'm thinking that those might be like really good risk measures, is to like really separate the DAO and the voting to the distribution of the funds. So that addresses a part that later down I addressed as a multi-sig, but I believe you can easily create a split contract to achieve much more security.
I mean, that sounds awesome. If you can get it all working with contracts and get this as like an actual DAO, that would be sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And third web looks really intuitive. I've looked into it a little bit, but if you could get it up and running, I mean, that seems like one of the best case scenarios.
Yeah, like I built my entire NFT pool setup with third web, and I was like blown away with how easy they make it, and I was blown away by their transparency of contracts. Because I've used some other ones where they were taking like a fee per transaction interacting with the contract, and like weird like rate limiting of the contracts that you had to use their SDKs, and like these weird like middlemen like trying to get in there, and third web doesn't do that.
Do they support all EVMs, or is it just layer 1 ETH?
No, it's it's pretty much every EVM.
Awesome.
They do like I deployed mine on Arbitrum, but they do. Let's see, I'll just select a network. Polygon, Optimism. They are even doing ZK stuff now. So almost anything that's EVM compatible, they can deploy to.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I really, just out of simplicity, I would like to use third web contracts just because I've used them before, and they already have a framework on how to do this. So they have a token contract, which then integrates with your voting contract, and then they have the split contract for managing the funds. And that's is basically on-chain, off-chain for voting, on-chain for managing funds, is you can get with a couple clicks of the button without doing anything too crazy. But I'm sure there's other options. DOB just put in here another option for tooling that's new is Gitcoin grants stack. Okay, I'm going to look into that as well. So and these are very technical things that I'm going over. So I'm going to stop with that because that's stuff I'm going to continue to investigate. But it's important because I would like to keep it within a skill set that I could explain easily to others. Otherwise, it's very hard for me to like build something that I don't understand and then trying to explain it to someone else and they don't understand, and then if someone else just needs to lead this whole thing that might just have a higher skill set. So this is where I'm at. Okay, so we talked about the token-based voting system, which is arbitrarily, we're just going to go for simplicity now. I'll look into other options like this grant stack, but for now it's like a one-to-one voting. Somebody holds a token, and that's a one vote for each member. I think that's a good way to do that. I think we've covered that. The next section, which is clear guidelines for membership. So what makes someone eligible for membership? Now, I just made some stuff up. I didn't even go to the community for this. I just figured I'd put it out there so that people could reply and comment. So the way I built this was eligibility for membership is available based on individuals who completed one of the following, which is you're an active orchestrator on the orchestrator list, or you have one of these roles in the Livepeer Discord, which is like core contributor, orchestrator, video builder, mist team, and studio team, right? This might be too broad or too strict. I'm not sure. How strict are we going to be with this type of fund management? And do what makes criteria to be on this this video builder DAO? Can I get some feedback on that?
I like the idea of all orchestrators being able to join the DAO, but maybe a limit to how long you had to have been running or live on Arbitrum, so that a brand new orchestrator can't just join the DAO immediately, if that makes sense.
Or is it based off of a more subjective approach where you say, hey, this person has shown their expertise in the past, and so therefore they should be able to vote because I think they have a good guidance system on what works, right?
Who decides that though?
Well, this is the question. But this is what I'm asking. Do we want to make the membership objective, where there's a clear yes and no based on some sort of criteria, or do we want to base it on subjective, which is like, hey, I'll pick on Mahmood here for a sec, even though he's not here. Mahmood has this, a senior position at Amazon, doing video infrastructure. He's pretty well versed in international networking for video infrastructure. You know what? He might be a good member on this DAO to really be able to determine what is a good project that might work, even though he's not been in an orchestrator for very long and blah, 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 right? So is that someone who's qualified, or is that someone who objectively doesn't meet the criteria, right? And I only pick on Mahmood because I saw him like 2 weeks ago in London and we hung out. So cheers, Mahmood. But what is the consensus around that?
Well, I mean, my initial thought is just, who would be the group that would decide that? Just before once the DAO's created, I guess it could be something that the DAO would vote on if there were new members or some, you're going to bring someone new on. But to initially start it, I'm just wondering who would be, or would that just be your decision? I'm not criticizing or judging. I'm just trying to get an idea of like how that would even work.
That's a good question. Anyone else have experience with starting a DAO?
I don't. That's why I'm asking that. Like maybe it's what might be
Sorry,
obvious questions.
I missed that. What was the question there?
Well, the question is around the subjectivity of who becomes a member. Do we want to make it objective, where if you've reached a clear milestone that's measurable, you get the membership, or do you want it based on credentials and experience that we subjectively think are very useful to determining the value of these type of tooling and projects, right? And if it is subjective, is it just one person like myself who's just gonna, hey, you know what? I take these 15, 20 people, I'm gonna run with this thing, and I've got the keys to the castle, and I've decided I'm gonna pick these people based on one person's thought, based on my experience, and if that DAO works correctly, then when it goes to submit it to the Treasury DAO, then it almost gets reviewed again by the rest of the ecosystem to say, hey, these people that this person has selected, I trust in this selection group, right? So it kind of gets double verified in a way. But to initially do it would require someone's subjective, somebody or some number of people's subjective input.
Because I think that, I mean, maybe there's a hybrid approach where at the beginning it's a certain
Say.
qualification.
Fixed criteria. You got an orc address, you're active, boom. You know what I mean? That's the initial criteria. It's set, and now you're in. And then to your point, go ahead, finish popping.
But then the DAO can vote on new members.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's a great question.
But again, and the next question is there a limit? Is there a limit? Do you think there should be a limit to how many people could be in this DAO?
Well, I think subjectively or like objectively, do orchestrators belong in the video DAO, the video builder DAO? Because there's the orchestrator DAO that might come about, right? And that is the DAO for orchestrators. So does the video builder DAO include any orchestrators? Is that even our role?
Right. I think there's like, you should identify what the criteria role is for the video builder shepherds that are focused on this problem. And I'm sure there's a lot of overlap with the existing orchestrator group, but it's maybe not overlapping entirely, right? So just to give a little background, as we started thinking about this sort of thing, I introduced the video builder tag in the Discord, and it's super subjective. Like anyone, I made a post about it in the forum. Anyone who asks for it can have it. But who did I start tagging? Who's asked for it? It's been the orchestrators that participate in any discussion relating to the future of video and video specific features. It's been the builders who are building the applications that are built on Livepeer. It's developers that work on Livepeer core that hang out and talk about innovative video ideas and the future of what can be possible, right? And kind of and the developer lounge channel is like the home for that. And so anyone who jumps into that channel and is discussing ideas, either ask for the tag or we just give the tag. And it's interesting to think about, well, how does that extend? Like if it shouldn't just be like me who's giving them out. It should be like the video builders themselves or the members of this DAO or whatnot. But I think it's like once you have a specific role, then you can pull in, many orchestrators, many app developers, many core developers, et cetera. But if you just start with the blanket thing that like every orchestrator is a video builder, I don't know if that statement is true. I don't know if that like makes total sense.
Right. Yeah, but again, that comes down. I mean, that's just as subjective as not making that the criteria. Just saying, hey, you want to be in the video builder DAO, like you chat in this channel. So, it holds the same subjectivity, right? If you can just hand out the tag, if because
but there's like you can make it more framework based. Like you could start with a fixed number of members, and that's fine, and that can be subjective, but everyone can get to invite one person over the next few months or whatever like the automated criteria is that makes it less just arbitrary and up to one person.
Right. Maybe what about this idea? And sorry, Doug, yes, of course, it's a very interesting idea and it quite possibly could work. But what about the idea of like, and this might not make any sense, but doing it based on voting, like just straight up voting. You have to vote someone in, from the very beginning. It just so happens that the one person like myself, I start by voting in, authority null. And so then, I'm 100% of the DAO, so it passes. And then Ben and I go, okay, well, let's vote in Ad Astra Video. And then we both got a vote. And then, if he likes and I like it, then, then he's in. Now there's 3. And then the voting just continues to build organically in that sense. It gets very skewed at the very beginning, but it might be more organic in that sense, because then you might, end up with all the people that community would think works, and then it doesn't I don't know, something like that.
What I've seen from other DAOs, but it's not my main focus, so might be a bit out of date, but sometimes there are like motivational posts or like application posts where you have to state your experience and motivation. And I think that might be like a good idea. Not just simply have like every orchestrator in there by default, but only those who are really want to be part of this and have provide some sort of motivation and the right experience.
Oh, that's a very good idea. And you know what that also does is also shows that someone wants to be active in the DAO and that they care about the outcomes. Whereas, you know, if you automatically get it, but you're not voting or you don't really look at it, you know, how much are you contributing?
I think there should
Yeah,
be some
also
sort
like
of
don't lose sight of like the work that the DAO has to do, right? Like being in the DAO doesn't mean you get LPT. It means you have to show up and review proposals and vote on how funds get allocated and whatnot. So it's actually like a pretty sizable amount of work and a big responsibility. And like maybe, you know, maybe you do associate some rewards with it. Like maybe when you make the proposal to the L1 treasury, you say, well, 10% of these funds are going to be kept and distributed amongst the DAO holders to compensate them for their time in reviewing all these applications. And like, that's totally fine too. Like the community can vote on that. But I do think if you're just starting by thinking about, hey, thousands of people are going to want to be in this thing and how are we going to filter and everything, you really need to ask the question, like, do thousands of people like want to and are able to do this work? Or should it be something that is like a smaller group or a committee initially that gets expanded over time?
Yeah, I think you should have to at least show an active interest in being part of the DAO and not just be put into it because you have a role. Just my 2 cents there. I think there should be some sort of like, yeah, I want to be a member, and then, you know, what other criteria come after that. But I don't think just because you have a role, you're automatically in a DAO, should be put into a DAO.
Well, that's a good question. Okay, so these are some really interesting topics. Based on Various' idea, I think an application to join the DAO with a couple paragraphs of why you believe you should join the DAO will filter out most people that shouldn't be in the DAO. And that I think that would actually be one of the best ways to get the initial set of people and to put in that effort, and then maybe just like a whole, you know, CV resume thing where it's like, you know, you got to do a little work to apply. Like it's not just a click of a button, right? Not connect wallet, but you know, something to say, you know, and that energy put into that might build a good framework for the initial members, and then obviously we can vote in, vote out, going on from there. I think that is a good start. The other thing is, like Doug was saying, do DAO members get paid? That could also skew results or encourage results. So that's something else that we'd have to figure out. I never even thought of paying DAO members. I thought it was just going to be a voluntary role, but maybe it is some sort of rewarded position. Do we think that rewarding the DAO members is a good idea? Is that something that people are genuinely interested in, or are they more interested out of the selflessness interest of self?
I think what Doug was saying, there's work involved, right? Like I think in some of the DAO conversations I've been part of, there were like, you know, roadmaps and visions and things in which the DAO would produce that would generate the need for the funding, right? So like you're actually working on things. So if you're a DAO member, you may not be coding and doing the actual building of the software, which the grants may be provided for, but you're in there like helping with the planning and the shaping of the roadmap and the vision and the deliverables and the things that are going to come out of this are going to be still effort, right? And if you're serious about building on the stack, then I think that's part of where Doug is talking. And I don't want to speak for Doug, but I think that's if you're in there committing your time and energy and you're producing for the DAO, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to give a fee out, for those that are contributing.
Okay, so let's assume we go with the idea of DAO members getting paid for their input and work put into the DAO. Do we split and then let's say that when we apply for the first round of retroactive grants, we build a split contract completely on chain, set in stone. So this is round one, split contract, DAO, treasury thingy, and we say, you know what, we want to take 5% of the funds put into the DAO members specifically. Do we want to, and let's say that that it works great and there's no contest. Do we want to pay the DAOs evenly again in a smart contract where everyone just gets paid X amount for doing the vote? Or do we want to distribute the funds now based on effort that they've put into the DAO, right? So Authority Null has done visuals and video production for promotion and of the DAO. Mike Zoop has done some back-end engineering for the interface of voting. And nobody else has done anything. So do those funds just go to those two individuals, or do they get split amongst evenly? Like, how would we want to think about that?
I mean, it's probably going to be a project by project basis in that regard, like, because there's effort involved in submitting grants, working with grant members to, like, there's back and forth between, the L1 grants and, the level 2 grants. So, like, there's going to be interacting with those who are proposing the grant. So there's a lot of administration and overhead tied to getting projects through, and like I was saying, the planning of the roadmap and the vision of the DAO itself. So, like, and your point is infrastructure and tooling and like, you building smart contracts, if that's maybe involved. Like, there's going to be administration for the DAO itself, and then there's going to be project work on a project by project basis. And I think you'd have to look at those individually, and also maybe a good reason to be selective with membership, because if you're involved, that means you have man hours or some skill set to add to the DAO, right?
Right. So that would also mean you have kind of like a time tracker or some sort of effort tracker in the DAO.
Yeah, accounting for effort somehow.
Which in a small, tight DAO, I don't think is too difficult. People are pretty self-governed, and if it's a tight, space, it's pretty easy to see someone's work. If there's 10 members in a DAO and someone, builds the whole front end, back end of a website, it's like, okay, well, and they submit, 20 hours of work or something. You're like, okay, that makes sense, right? But if if you've got 1,000 member DAO and someone's like, well, I put in 1,000 hours like last month, and you're like, okay, well, that doesn't even make sense.
Well, like I said, there's tenets and goals that the DAO's operating under, right? If we hear a lot in the Discord that people are tired of the site being slow, and somebody goes in and deploys a VPS, right, and gets things working, and that might be there will be a case for that. But I think individuals that are participating and doing effort, and again, this is part of why it's retroactive, right? Whereas the it's not implied to get money, right? Like, you're building and helping, and if somebody wants to recognize you for that effort you put forward, then with a monetary value, that's great. But I don't think folks are here to get rich trying to help the DAO, right?
You almost need like the expense tracker could be like a separate vote for who you think should get the money, and then everyone votes for people, and then the percentage of votes that you got, you get that percentage of. No, it probably doesn't work.
Well, nah. Yeah. Look. If you look at the current grant, the way it works today, like, every project that's going to submit for funding is going to say, hey, there's X amount of man hours. And if it's a team of people, and I worked with a couple of different people on grants, all right, and we'll look at it and say, okay, here's 1,000 man hours of effort we spent, and it'll be okay. Development did this amount of hours, marketing or whomever. You're this person, that person. Each person may have contributed their little bit of time and effort and expertise that they had, and that's great. But again, when you weigh that against the total project budget and what's actually going to be done and built and where the man hours were actually spent, you'll see, okay, here's the breakdown, right? And it becomes a little obvious. I think the gray area becomes, oh, you just helped us write out a roadmap for the next 3 months of the vision of the video DAO. Like we came out with a plan and said we're going to do FFmpeg first, then we're going to do this, then we're going to, you know what I mean? Like somebody who's like thinking through strategy, I'm not sure how you quantify that in terms of rewards or incentives for that kind of effort. But the project ones I think are pretty easy, right? The team proposing it's going to have a breakdown of hours and effort, and then we would vote to say yes, this proposal is compelling, it works, it's great, it's adding to the community, and then we would all vote, and then we would pay it out, right? But the administrative stuff's a little more difficult.
Sure, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
I don't think we should overcomplicate things. I mean,
Yeah.
first of all, we don't even know like what exactly will be the work that the DAO has to do, because we don't know what kind of grants will come in. But ideally, I mean, it's just like reviewing proposals and voting. It should not like include deploying servers or programming. If that's the case, that should be a grant by itself, right? So I don't
Yes,
think
true.
initially we should pay the DAO members. We should first see how much work it really is. And then if it like picks up and we see some good results, some good applications, then we could like talk about that. But I think it's too early right now.
Yeah, I'm on board with that for sure. If we can just keep it simple and at least get something going first and see how it all works out, and then talk about money and paying members after, probably will keep things moving along pretty fast.
Yeah, like my idea was out of simplicity too. Like I was like, okay, we'll make a landing page website with WordPress with like a pre-built like roadmap thing, and fill in the blanks, and then you use Third Web pre-made smart contracts to manage everything, and boom, you've got something to start with. You've got kind of a mandate, expectations, and an application to join, and then you've got the actual on-chain voting and everything else, and then you kind of just build out there. You kind of see where it needs to go, and those two things that I just explained are within my skill set, so I could probably build that before the DAO. Like I can build that as the DAO is launching. It would not take a lot of time, and then from there we could vote to expand different efforts.
Yeah, those things are great, and I agree with Buyer's sentiment. I think you're looking more at the tactical stuff, and I think some of the stuff that we need to really start doing first is strategic, like the actual vision for the DAO, like what work will it do, like, and what's the purpose. Like I think some of that's already in that proposal, but I think we really got to crystallize that. Like, what is it that this thing actually should be accomplishing? What if everything goes well, what would be the outcome of this DAO, and how would it look like if it's successful, right? Like I think being able to understand that part is a lot more important right now than whether we're going to use WordPress or, and again, I think those things have to happen as well, but you're going to get a lot of energy behind people with a vision that's compelling and that makes sense and everyone rallies behind. I think it's that the message really where the people start to gravitate towards it.
I mean, I tried to outline that in the pre-proposal, a bit of a vision, executive summary. But yeah, I guess more clear
It's like
goals.
sales and it's like sales and politicians, man. You just got to get out there and stump that speech and beat the drum and then people start following you. It's not like if you say it once, everyone hears it. It's just gotta be message every time, right? And again, that's something that meeting and starting to have a normal cadence of people coming together and meeting on the proposal. I think this whole discussion, part of that.
Definitely. Okay, so I want to get back to the point, which is clear guidance for membership. Eligibility of membership is available to individuals, blah blah blah. And I listed all this objective criteria. Could we change that to application based? Is that how we want to go forward? Does that seem sustainable? A good foundation for initial members?
I mean, I like it for sure.
Right on. Cool. I'm going to change that. Yeah, because otherwise, you have like 50 orchestrators that, they hardly even transcode, let alone want to participate in a DAO, who then all of a sudden gain eligibility for some reason. So let's go with an application system. I think that's a really good foundation. Cool. I'm just making some notes here. Cool. Okay, let's continue on. Let's go for guidance. Number 3 is clear guidance for participation. We strongly encourage participation. I put this in not because I have any attachment to like what it actually means. I just wanted to put something in so it sounds like something's there. And it was greatly disputed, so awesome. Any member who has abstained from voting on a proposal will have their membership removed. And then, in addition, any member may be voted out by passing a membership removal vote. Okay, so I'll start with the easy one. Any member can be voted out with the passing of a membership removal vote. That sounds reasonable, doesn't it? At least I think it does. If you can
repeat that one more time. Sorry.
So you can get voted out of the DAO. If a majority of people want you voted out, you get voted out. You get your membership burned.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's kind of how these things work. So we'll leave that one in. Now, any member who abstained from voting on a proposal should have their membership revoked. Does that make sense, or is that just like way too strict?
That sounds a little strict, in my opinion.
So strict.
yeah, not just a little strict. I think I'll just participation. Doug even replied to this. Losing membership for failing to vote on every single proposal might be a bit too hard. Winky face. But I love the encouraging of participation. Thanks, Doug. If you go with round-based model voting instead of vote on every proposal model. And around once every few months, then perhaps you could require participation in a round to keep the roll. Right. So, wait, Doug, do you just want to elaborate?
Yeah, do people know what I'm talking about when I say round based? I just added a comment in the chat, the water cooler chat, about this too. Like for retroactive funding, it looks a little bit less like grant proposals, where you're just reimbursing someone for exactly what they think they spent in order to develop something. A lot of times that's hard to know after the fact. It's hard to quantify their time and their strategy and whatnot, right? Instead, it's like these sorts of programs typically run in rounds, and they say, hey, in this round, we're going to distribute, we have 10,000 LPT to distribute. And hey, who are the applicants we should consider splitting this up amongst, right? And then applications come in, whether people submit themselves or other people nominate them and submit on their behalf. And then what the voters do is they just determine how to split up that 10,000 LPT amongst whatever the target is. Say the top 5 are going to each get a portion, or the top 10 are going to get a portion. And that's what we're voting to determine who is in the top 5 and how proportionally it should be split up. And so again, if you're running it in rounds, it's like, hey, you know, we did a round this month and the next round is 2 months from now. So between now and then, get your applications in, get building. We'll add some members to the DAO, we'll remove some members from the DAO. People will resign from voting, other people will want to come in, right? And you can kind of run these things in rounds. And so I said, you know, maybe the requirement for being in is, hey, if a round is open for voting's open for a month or something, or a couple weeks, yeah, maybe everyone does have to participate in that round. Whereas if you're looking at something that's more like grant proposals, where like hundreds of proposals can come in at any given moment, I think it's too strict to say you have to vote on every single one, or else you're out.
That's good feedback. So, would you say that this is more of a round style DAO, or would you say that this is more of like a I guess you kind of already did say like a round, you know, is that what the other projects do, like Optimism and Arbitrum? They do round style voting?
That's how like Optimism's retroactive public goods funding rounds work. That's how Gitcoin grants rounds work. It's not exclusive. Other things look more like grant programs, right? Like it's kind of up to you, it's up to this group what you want it.
Wouldn't you say that gets
what
a
you
bit
want it to be.
skewed though? Because you could say, well, you know, in the first round there was 10 applicants, in the second round there's one. So, you know, the one applicant in the second round got all the funds of everyone that was split up in the round previous, and so now they're like managing what round they should even apply for.
Well, no, I mean that's like people responding to incentives and the programming community being effective, right? So like if there's 10,000 LPT available or 100,000 LPT available or whatever it is, like you might expect more than one applicant to show up and apply for that, right? Especially if they, you know, the criteria says the top 5 will be rewarded, right? Then you know, all the builders in this space should be nominated. Also, I would say like the community governance over the Livepeer treasury shouldn't approve more funds being released to Video Builder DAO if they're only getting one applicant for any of those funds over the course of months, right? And again, these rounds have been pretty far apart, right? Like I don't know, they run every 6 months or every 3 months, and it's a big thing, and it, you know, a lot of work goes into, are you going to apply in this round, and you know, who are the recipients and whatnot. So you can take a look. It's just one model. You could also start super small with just a simple grants program and review every application, kind of up to how many people are in it and how operationally complex you want it to be.
That's good point. Yeah. So in my head, I'm much more in this grant style understanding of things, just at least in the mind frame, which is like, you know, 2 applicants come in. One has built, you know, Xenon, this well built out, you know, open source, say, version of a live streaming platform that attracts lots of people and took, you know, 6 months to build. And then someone has come in with 2 lines of code. They built a little widget that you can, you know, plug into JavaScript or something. And it's like, one took lots of effort, one took little effort, and then, you know, they would each submit a grant for how much they think they deserve, and then, you know, it would, you know, the person that put in the 2 hours of work gets, you know, 2 hours worth of value, and the person that put in 1,000 hours gets the 1,000. But in the grants round, it sounds like, you know, if it was a first and second place, they would be getting a closer amount, like, and so the big grant would get, you know, 5,000 LPT, and the second one would be 4,000, even though they haven't done the same amount of work. But at the same time, like you said, this could incentivize the free market to now jump in and go, oh, hey, I'll put more work into this to make sure that I ensure a top spot. And so the free market could work itself out. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, like like the world's your oyster, man. It can work any way that everyone thinks is the most fair. But I think the way these sort of things would work would be like, oh, let's say every member of the DAO gets 10 voting tokens or something. And, in that case, they'd recognize like, oh yeah, I'm putting 9 of them on, the one that did a ton of work and only 1 of them on the one that seemed really easy because I think it deserves 9 times as much or whatever. And then, the funds would get split up proportionally to how many voting tokens each person would have. And I know you're not trying to like build something custom. You want to use tools out of the gate. I would just look at like how these things work, what tools are available out of the box that you can plug into, how they solve these problems.
So that's a good see. Okay, and so again, I'm always kind of thinking back to like what I could accomplish that would work rather than having to outsource this. So every round, each member gets 5 votes to bid on their top 5 projects and of that round, and then proportionally, once all the votes are out, you're going to collect this scaling. Hey, this one clearly won with the most votes, and it goes down all the way to the bottom where there might be many applicants and many winners, but it's all divided amongst the amount of votes proportionally, and then so therefore you could almost grade it not on amount of effort, but maybe on the amount of productivity or amount of work it would, because maybe that 2-hour JavaScript line is a tool that brings in 1,000 times more work than the fully built app. And so we look at that and go, that's actually more valuable. Just because you spent less time on it is more valuable, right? But just because you spent less time on it doesn't mean it's not as valuable. So you could say, well, everyone in the DAO put 1 token on there at least, and so they're number 1, right? So maybe that's
totally, yeah. You just want like the video builders who are excited and participating and energized and like building the really useful, impactful tools that are onboarding demand to Livepeer. Like you want them to have Livepeer token. You want them excited about the project and participating in this community every day. And so yeah, it's not about like counting how many hours someone said they put into building something that had no impact, right? I think it's more about sort of subjectively judging the impact.
Yeah, and so and from the technical perspective, that'd be really easy just to say, well, instead of everyone gets 1 DAO token, everyone gets 5 DAO tokens. And so when the voting happens, you got 5 votes, and you can place all 5 on one candidate. You can spread them amongst 5. You can organize your votes however you want. Every member gets to do that, and you get this nice scaling feature of okay, you got this many. You earned this proportion of the 10,000 LPT that we're being funded for this round. I think that would be a pretty good structure. How about that? I know, Ben, you like the 1-to-1 vote, but would you be all right if it was just a 5 token vote? Same power. There would be no difference between members, so that wouldn't change. But then we would just get 5 votes for the actual distribution of like funds.
So you just get 5 instead of 1?
Yeah, and so everyone has the same voting power, but it's just more useful for actually making votes on the projects so that the funds can be distributed properly amongst,
So you could weight your vote like against on multiple projects.
Yes.
Kind of.
Oh yeah, no, that's pretty.
I was explaining that to Ben, or at least that's what my take on what you were saying.
Yeah, no, I understood the way you explained it.
Yeah, so it's not that Titan node gets 10 and you get 5. It's we all get 5, but then you could put all your 5 on the one project that you're like, no, this is like the clear, like this made up for more value than the trailing 9. I'm gonna put it on this one. Or you could say, hey, I like these 5 projects. I'm gonna 1 on each, and so therefore you get a distribution during voting time.
I like that idea. I mean, I don't know how many projects we're going to have in a row, but I like the idea in general that you can choose like how heavy you believe in the vote.
Right, and then it gives each member more opportunity to have that say, and they can say, well, 3 to this project and 1 and 1, and so that's my distribution of what I think is fair, and I think that would actually incur really sustainable results and provide good feedback to also the broad community on what we value and to what degree we value some projects. Okay, that's some good feedback too. I like that. Okay, we got a little off. Okay, so that came out of participation. So that was just that's further down in the whole the proposal. But I'm gonna bring it back to participation, which is if you miss a round. Okay, let's go with round voting proposals. So let's start with every 6 months. Every 6 months we're gonna have a round where we're gonna ask the tier 1 treasury for 10,000 LPT. And during that, the voting period, which is 1 month every 6 months, you got to vote your 5 tokens on what's come in and blah blah blah. To what degree do you lose your membership in this DAO? Is it simply just you get voted out, or is there some sort of punishment for not using your tokens to vote? Or is it simply just a vote out? Like there's no other objective reason you would get kicked. If you don't use your tokens, that's totally up to you. Doug says, got to jump. No worries, Doug. Thanks for coming.
I mean, I think either one of those really works. I think maybe, if there's a vote out and you can just say like, hey, this person hasn't been voting, and I don't think they're bringing any value here since they're not putting their 2 cents in. I don't know if you need to actually have it be you didn't vote X amount of times, you're gone. But
the DAO would just any member can just submit a proposal to vote someone out, or propose a vote.
If someone's not voting, I don't know. Are they hurting the DAO by not voting?
Not with this.
They're not adding to it. They're not adding to it. But are they hurting it?
I don't think they're. If there was a 1-to-1 vote, they might be, because I don't know how though. I thought of this earlier, but if you have like 5 votes, will it really affect the distribution? Like they just don't have their say. But like, I don't know if it would actually negatively impact the DAO. And as long as we build a tracking system for refunding DAO members, then they won't get automatically awarded a grant like income for just being a part of the DAO.
Right. Yeah, I think that will probably work itself out then. But I'm certainly curious to hear other people's opinions on that. I mean, maybe every so often there's just a meeting of like how a voting on, is everyone in line with who's in the DAO? Or is there like a I don't know how often it would be, but every quarter or whatever it is there anyone that you want to like put up for or blanking on the word, but basically for getting rid of them out of the DAO, throwing them out of the DAO?
Yeah, I think we should just eliminate that part. Like, it's pretty simple. If we want to remove you, we'll just vote to remove you. And if you're not participating, I don't think it's actually hurting the distribution of the DAO, especially if you're not getting rewarded for just being in the DAO. I think that creates just unnecessary amount of work to manage. Like, then you've got to actually track this kind of thing. Like, oh, you didn't vote last round, Papa Bear. Like, I've got to track this. Somebody's got to track this. Whereas it seems like unnecessary work. Cool. Okay, I'll just remove that section. I think that's just unnecessary. Okay, let's keep going down. Regular community and forums and discussion. So I was going to do the primary forum discussion in the official Livepeer forum. So just, maybe we could have our own category, or there's already governance. So, votes, proposals for votes, these can all be done under, the governance topic of the governance category of the Livepeer website. And then maybe like a dedicated Discord thread, like not even a channel, just a thread that like we can have chit chat back and forth about these type of decisions or comments. Is that how we want to structure it? Do we want to, use Livepeer resources to do this, or do we want to like build our own?
I think in general, transparency is a good idea.
Yeah,
I'm all for transparency.
Yeah, like I just figure, we're doing Livepeer grants. Like we should probably just use the Livepeer forum. Seems to work quite well. It could use a bit more activity too. It's not a very there's not many posts that happen. So like if we, I don't think we'll be clogging anything up.
That's a nice value add too, because I do see a lot of people use the forum. Like there are people who never chat in Discord that I see put up forum posts. So if we could drive a bit more activity there through the Video Builder DAO, that would be nice.
Cool. Okay, so I'll leave that. I think that like serves its purpose. Transparency, governance, proposals, and voting processes. So like all proposals must be submitted through the official DAO Builder web portal. So like there'll be just simply a portal which Web3 gives you all the tooling to build. They give you all the JavaScript and SDKs and everything, and it allows you to interact with the contract directly through a website. And you can connect a wallet, type in the description, and submit a proposal, right? Or submit a proposal to. So this, I guess, this would be like an applicant. A retroactive grant applicant would go in here, or how would that work? Anyway, that's more technical things we can build out, so I'm not going to dive too deep into that. There's just two portions of this. There's applicants who submit submit their application, and then we vote on which ones we want to send our votes to, and then once that's all solidified, we build the split contract that handles what we just voted on. Any wallet or team, whether individual team, may submit a proposal, right? I think this is pretty obvious. You can submit proposals on, although you can also, what did Doug call that? You can submit proposals based on other people. You can, what was the word he used? Elect someone. You can elect someone. You can elect a team or something like that. Yeah, I'll just put that in there. That's good. Cool. Okay, what else? I also added in this part of actionable reporting of grant distribution, guarantee accountability. So we'll have, I don't know how possible this is, but some sort of like interface to evaluate the numerical evidence of the grants we're giving away based on the amount of increased work that's brought in. I don't know if this is actually really all that possible, but maybe could be kind of guesstimates or some sort of way to attract accountability of these. Well, yeah, it was mentioned by Missouri. What are they called? They kind of mentioned how they really care about reporting on the effectiveness of the grants and what it actually is bringing in. So I was trying to incorporate that somehow. So I don't know how that's possible, but it's technical and maybe could be kind of worked on later. So yeah, those were kind of the big items I wanted to cover. Those are mostly the stuff I put in. Most of it's ChatGPT. And yeah, and the rest of it is all just kind of very generic. Oh, actually, there's some of the stuff. Are we good with using the Arbitrum 1 chain? Is that what we want to use?
Seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, I think it makes the most sense.
Cool. Okay. Let's see. Compensation plan. Just doing a couple other changes here. Cool. Arbitrum 1. What else is in here? Extensive review. We'll have to create, you know, the application itself and what we want to have in the application, but that will be further on. Budget and resources, round-based system. Yeah, cool. Okay, I mean, that's basically my proposal and the really big items I wanted to go over. Does anyone else have any comments or questions about the proposal or about the structure or ideas that we just talked about, or have any feedback on the video builder DAO? I'm going to go back through and reply to all these messages. Authority null, I love your comment. It says yes, yes, yes. I have no feedback other than I want in somehow. Well,
yes.
I think this is a good way to do it, is application based. So all you have to do is apply.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I'm excited. DAOs can be pretty badass.
Cool. Cool. Let's yeah, but do I have any other feedback, comments, or even just want to show excitement or not excitement for ideas like this? Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I built a little logo using a free AI logo maker. There's a terrible AI logo maker, but it is there. I don't know if we want to go with it. It's pretty simple. So you want to step up and do like a logo?
I'm terrible when it comes to logo design. Apologies.
Yeah, me too. This is why I used AI. But all it did was like say video builder DAO and then put like a little like video thing beside it, like a play button. And I was like, that's actually not too bad. It's like very simple.
I have a friend who's really good at that stuff, and I got you in a group DM with him. He's very interested in Livepeer, and I'm trying to like get him involved somehow, but I'm like haven't found the in yet. He does great logo design. He does great development. He's in cybersecurity. He does like contract creations and audits. He builds DAOs. He's really versatile. I'm trying to like get him into Livepeer somehow.
Chase says, I can do it if you like. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, Chase. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to build a video builder DAO logo, absolutely. That would be really helpful.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, 100%. Great. Okay. Yeah, a little logo. Like I'm trying to just make this like as simple and using the tools that are already out there. I don't want to start like I really don't want to start writing Solidity or doing any type of like smart contract, you know, building. I would much rather use smart contracts that are tested, proven, and work around them the way they're built. So
sure.
So anyway, yeah, and then, you know, like building a little roadmap website again, like a little WordPress themed website using a cache network. Yeah, Brad and I did some research, and you can get a hosted website for like you can rent a VPS for like 88 cents a month. It's ridiculous. So we'll just like host one on there in like a Web3 environment, and then See how that goes. Okay, well, I think that's the end of my topic. That was a very long topic. It took an hour and 20 minutes. So yeah, but it was a good one. I think we'll move on from that. Brad, are you with us? No, he says BRB. His topic was about the selection dashboard. Just wondering if there's any updates with that, or if Emran is working on it at all. I'm not sure what update from him there is. Mike, are you with us? Nope. Mike talked about Catalyst and Livepeer broadcaster documentation and things like that. So I don't know. He's gone. Well, in that case, and Doug was Video Builder DAO, which we just talked about a lot. So, do we have any more topics we want to cover? Does anyone have anything that we've missed or that they want to talk about? Brad says back. Brad, do you want to come up to stage real quick and talk about the stream dashboard and a quick update on it?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I'll step away for a second. There's no major update from my end. I'm doing the thankless task of trying to get consistency in the logs, and that it all makes sense when it's similar for each output. From the Livepeer Inc. side, I pinged Emran today, before this, and they're still working on it, but they're hoping to wrap that up maybe the end of this week, I think. To be determined on that, I think, as far as I understand. But one thing to note is the initial implementation is not going to have a couple things. Most importantly, it's not going to have the Ethereum address or the orchestrator URI. From what I can tell right now, it looks like they're just going to do the session ID and the manifest ID, client IP, and there was one more. I can't remember what it was. So I believe the part to add the Ethereum address and the URI of the orchestrator will be in the pull request we do to try to get the other updates to the logs into the core Go Livepeer. Joe?
Yeah, I think that really makes the stuff a lot easier to read if they can add the service URI or ETH address.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, to be clear, I think that was always the plan. The first step is they're going to stand up what they use right now internally, and then we are going to add what we want to make it more helpful for us.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I could obviously it's workable with what they're currently using. Just a little easier to make sense of with the additional info that you've added.
Yeah, I agree. It makes it more feature complete, or more complete in general, of seeing a stream end to end with the information that I've compiled, or how I compile it right now, which is up for debate on if anybody wants anything to change or anything to add. I know there's been requests for ETH paid. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
But like I said, right now, just working on the consistency part. So I'm hopefully ready to send the PR when they stand theirs up.
Cool. Yeah, I'm very excited for them to stand theirs up. I'm very excited to see where we get there with that. And because I'm already using your dashboard, and I'm realizing, like, I know that you're using just like a regular VPS, and like maybe that's why I'm swapping out so much. Or maybe I literally am just swapping out that much, and I really need to tighten down on the strictness of the pool.
It very well could be. I know Video Miner did some edits when they saw my dashboard too. But it's I can't. It's got to be hard as a pool trying to figure that out, and where do you rank people? Like, what tiers, or you rank anybody? Livepool's doing better, it seems like, as a aside. In this last reset that I've done, the first test I was doing, they were getting swapped a lot. But then I reset it because I had to update the code and update the broadcaster, and they're doing better this time. They're still getting swapped, but not nearly as much.
Yeah, there's just a couple that are like main offenders that pretty much swap every time, but as a whole, most orchestrators do pretty well.
I will say, kudos to Vyers. You get a lot of the streams, and you have not been swapped one time. So your node is doing good.
Yeah, no doubt. Barry's is,
Well, thank you.
Barry's is pulling us to the top.
I have one in New York and one in Germany. And actually, the Germany one's kind of a cheat for everybody in Hetzner because that's where it is. It's not a far path that it has to go.
Yeah, I would say I'm banking on. Well, Varys has got some great infrastructure, and is no doubt he's doing a wonderful job. So I think that looks good. I think from an end user perspective, that's super awesome. I'm also happy to see the diversity of people trying different things. Like, like Live Pool is the first pool, so they built some infrastructure. I was the second pool, and I tried to do this like semi quasi high performance anyone can join thing where there's some gatekeeping, which made it better. And then like video miners like taking it to a whole new selection algorithm amongst their pool, which is going to be like super effective. And it's like things just keep getting better and better, and then like we can see different nodes performing. I'm really excited for this performance aspect of it all. So I'm also the experimentation amongst everyone and the interest in doing better is really exciting. So that's cool.
I'm really looking forward to in the once Livepeer has it standing up and seeing the results for longer streams that are over 10 segments, just to see if that matches up with.
Well, just the sheer amount of streams going through it. It'll probably only be a 2-day window max, but it'll be a lot bigger data set than what I'm doing.
Are you able to calculate the amount of time or the amount of segments that are going to each node?
Yeah,
with some backend
multiply by 10 for each for every segment's basic, or every test is 10 segments, so you could do it just add a 0.
But what I'm saying is, like, right now you're showing this selection process, but is it worth adding in something to say this is how many hours you've done? Like, that's what I do with my pool, right? Or is that too cumbersome?
I don't think it's too cumbersome. I just got to find a spot for it.
Yeah, so what
the data's there and it's by segment, so I can tell who transcoded which segment.
Yeah.
There's when they swap on the first one, the fifth one, the seventh one, you're not transcoding the whole thing a lot of time, or most of the time you are, sometimes you're not.
Because on mine I just regular expression, like the segment length was, and then like it's like 2 seconds or 7 seconds, and then I just tally up all that and save it into a database. So it's like you could you see how many hours you've done, right?
Right.
And so what would be interesting is something like, two people have the same selection mounts, and one person has 3 swaps and the other person has none. But then maybe like how does that align with how much work they've also done, right? Maybe that could be a third bar or something, the amount of minutes they've done.
Yeah. We might end up having kind of like a paged or tabbed approach to these charts. We just have different charts.
Right.
Work performed, transcoded minutes, probably transcoded minutes because that kind of aligns with payout bot.
Right. Yeah.
It all together instead of hours. We'll see how it goes. We'll get a lot more information when they stand up there. I got to make.
It'll be a lot easier to keep building on this once they stand up their side, because then you can always just.
I'm not spending Ethereum anymore. I don't know. I might keep my tester going for a little while.
Yeah, and you could just like do a pull request, test it out, push it in, and boom, you got the update. So we'll keep pushing on Emran to continue on with that. Has he done any work on it, or is he still on the back burner with it?
They're working on it this week. I think he's working on it today. I believe he got it started last week, didn't get all around get it, but their plan is to stand it up this week, end of this week, I believe. Of course, that can change. But
Cool.
That's the plan right now.
Cool. I must say, because of your thing, I kicked out the Russian guy, and now I've got no swaps in the EU region.
I thought you've kicked him out like a few times at this point.
Yeah, but he keeps coming back. I had to keep kicking him out. He's actually gone now.
Did you block all of Russia at this point?
No, but I just kicked him.
Okay.
This has been
Good.
it's been an interesting experience. But yeah, okay. Anyway, yeah. Any last updates on that, or basically just I do appreciate the amount of work you've done and put into it. I'm not sure if this is eligible for the Video Builder DAO, but I'm assuming that once we get up and running, we could maybe mimic this and build an orchestrator DAO, and that would be a bit more straightforward. Just if you're an active orchestrator, you got to be in the orchestrator DAO.
What about putting it into the reliability and test?
Yeah, I'm going to submit it to that. I just haven't got through kind of cleaning it up.
Oh, yes.
all the way
Please
yet.
submit that grant. Yes, absolutely.
It's still open, which I'm grateful that they've left it open this long. Had a couple of false starts on my end, like trying to put it together and just kind of losing motivation and getting stuck. But then this last round, I saw the light, so to speak.
Oh, that's awesome.
At
Yeah,
the
definitely submit
inspiration.
that. Yeah, definitely submit that. And when you do submit it, please just tag us in the orchestrator chat so we could all comment on it and give it a high five.
All right.
Because they
will
do
do
look
that.
at that sometimes. If the community is excited about it and they might not understand the value of it, it's like, oh, well, yeah, okay, well, this makes sense.
Yep.
Cool.
I do have another topic that came to me if we want to
Yeah, go, shoot.
spend a few minutes on it. It's regarding the input pixels. I worked through a lot of that on adding it to the payment, but the hiccup that I put in Discord is the frames per second is not generally included for the input side on it. So on the estimate fee part from the broadcaster, when they send the ticket to, when they're calculating how much of a fee they're going to need to send to the orchestrator, they use 120 frames per second because there could be no frames per second, or it could be 0, which just means pass through. So a person getting the transcoding done just wants the frame per second to match the input for the outputs, right? What I'm proposing to do at this point is just pick some kind of low frames per second that generally every video would be above to include in the estimate fee, or like when you're calculating the tickets for the payment. And it would be the same frames per second on the broadcaster side and the orchestrator side. And I think, like, so what's a low FPS? I think I've used 12 right now. I'm just curious on thoughts on how to approach that.
Can you step back a minute, or like a couple steps? What are you trying? You're trying to figure out how many
How many pixels, the input, input pixels to include it in the payment mechanisms. So right now we're just paying for output, but it was proposed and talked about on the
I see. Yeah, I was like, why do you, okay.
about
Yeah,
including the input pixels. And I had some work on that before because I was trying to send the resolution to the orchestrator back in February, but then I let it kind of sit. So I had half the work already done. It was just going back and adding it to the fee calc.
Well, I'm just like, why did you pick 12 frames per second?
It was half of 24.
And still even that, like, well, I mean, I'm gonna assume most people are doing like 25 or 30 on.
I would agree.
Just be, so I'm just wondering why you'd go with half of. Well, even if it was 24, why would you go with half? If
it was really a mechanism to say that nobody would be thinking they're overpaying for it. I mean, it could just use you could just use the output frames per second as a proxy and saying, look, it's probably that.
Right, they're probably not going from like 120 down to 30, you're saying? Well, I mean, they
Or
could,
going
but
from
they-
30 up to 120. That's probably
Or-
not happening.
right. If it is, it's probably a configuration issue, but still. Um, I would think, I mean, I would maybe pick like 27 or something like that, something in the between, the Europe standard and in the US. I mean, sure, there's going to be some 60, but I don't know. It's weird that information isn't passed.
Yeah, and the other unfortunate part is it's in the LPMS, which uses like the FFmpeg like C API or something. I get really lost when it gets to this, and that's where it's probing the file to get certain information.
So the
but
information
not
is in
looking.
there. It's just not easy to grab for.
It's not looked for. Like LPMS is not looking for the frames per second. They're looking for other things like the codec
Right.
and the
Okay.
resolution, but not the frames per second.
Got it. Right, and because that's not using the calculator, but it does. I just don't understand how it works on the way back, or once the transcoding happens, then it does look there to see how many frames per second it is. Correct? Or no?
Correct on the pass through. So I think what you're asking is like when it asks for pass through frames per second, how does it figure it out? I have to go look. Otherwise, you're specifying the frames per second on the output in general.
Oh, just as in the profile that you're requesting.
Yeah.
Got it. Right. Ooh, yeah. I don't have an easy solution, not even in concept, let alone like actually how to do it programmatically. Can't even say that, but at least I understand what the issue is now.
Yeah, I thought I'll likely just kind of pick something, either keep it at 12 or, like you said, do 25, 27, something like that, and just submit it and see what gets talked about and what's said.
I mean, potentially. So, but potentially, is that information accessible though through the LP MS if someone knows?
I think it would be if FFmpeg is probing it, it could figure out the frames per second.
Because if the billing's going to be done, because this is to address the like switching the billing over to the G code instead of the encode, or is that right? I mean, that's how this all came about.
This is to be paid for both.
Oh, so we paid for both,
including the input pixels. So you get paid for that because you're decoding it as well as the output pixels to encode. Now, second step is the normal like price per pixel is going to change when we add this.
Right, because you're accounting for both, so it's this way kind of just as
you're
getting probably charging more because you're just not accounting for the input ones.
Yeah, and Frank, feel free to jump in. You did a lot of this, and you've done the math on trying to figure out the pricing. I don't know if you can talk right now, though.
Looks like he's trying to talk. I'm just guessing just because he moved places, at least on my screen.
Yeah, same with mine. I can't hear him, though.
No, I don't see the little green box. Come back, Frank.
All right. Do we have anything else we want to cover?
I'm just wondering, Brad, would someone that is familiar with like the C part of the how FFmpeg ties into the whole thing be able, do you think, figure this out? Like, is this just an issue of your skill set? Do we need to get someone else involved on that, or?
Oh yeah, I think it's definitely a limitation of my skill set and the sheer fact of I don't want to put in the time to try to figure it out at this moment.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. It wasn't. I hope you didn't take that as a dig or anything.
No, it's all right.
I'm just trying to figure out. Is that at least having that identified? Should we?
I guess I should go look at the LPMS and see who's committing to it. If they can
have them
point the direction of how how you actually
Right.
get that.
Um,
I know in like Python, I
yeah.
use the OpenCV library, and it's really fast. You can just get the duration. That's how I get the duration in my tests. I don't use FFmpeg. use the OpenCV, and it looks for markers of some sort and gets it.
Right.
I think it's
Right.
very similar with how LPMS does it with the propane.
And that hasn't been touched in years, so that person may not even still be with Livepeer, whoever originally
I
implemented
think
it,
I think it was
it's yonder.
Jai. I think it was
Oh,
Jai,
okay.
and he left a while ago.
Right. Yeah, that one's going to be a tough one to get at. I mean, if it has to be an estimate, I guess that's better than nothing, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, the first iteration doesn't have to be the final
Right.
by any means, but it does help kind of explore that side of it because the input pixels, for the most part, are the heaviest portion pixel-wise. Like the input pixels are always more than even if you transcode, 3 to 4 profiles. But
Oh yeah.
the decoding, the other side of that is the decoding is usually an easier process, like computational wise.
Yeah, it's still the limiting factor on most video cards. So
I agree. That's my experience. Unless you have the ones with the 2 decoders or 3 decoders. Yeah, mine max out at the decode side.
might have to talk to Marco. I think he's pretty good with C, and might have to get him to start digging in there, see what he can find. I know he hasn't wanted to, but I
Eli
could shoot
might be
him.
able to help. I might have to message Eli and see if he can
Eli's probably a good person too.
point that direction.
I think we should get live if I mean I know Livepeers trying to push things onto us to do, but this might be beyond what any of us are capable of. So if we might have to just see if Livepeers is willing to help out with that.
I agree.
Alrighty then. I like that you're looking at it though.
Yeah, I got it pretty much all the way through, which includes adding metrics for the resolution, the orchestrator. My next thing I was going to look at, see if I could try to figure out adding a metric for, like the decode codec, which is basically H.264, HEVC, or the VP89. See if I can add a metric for that. I thought that'd be nice to be able to track what's coming in.
Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, I guess it's mostly H.264, but hopefully it won't be like that forever.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend too much time on it. We'll see how hard it might be.
Sounds good.
All right. We've been at this for an hour and 45 minutes. We've gotten through all the topics. Any last comments or words before we sign off?
None for me. And I'll just throw this out there. It's kind of along the same lines, but not really. But so I guess there's just no way for us to figure out a method of like, is stuff video on demand versus live. I know it's been brought up in the past, but since you're digging around the code, I mean, there's nothing different about the actual files. It's just a matter of what their use case is. Or
yeah, I think in the Catalyst stack, I think Mist knows the Mist side, the server side, but once it gets to the go live peer part, it's just a segment.
Actually, that brings up another question. So how does it work? It goes Catalyst like to Mist to like Catalyst is also tied in with Mist and the Livepeer broadcaster. That's how that all works. I was just looking through some GitHub stuff earlier, and I thought Catalyst kind of replaced the Livepeer broadcaster. I didn't realize it still uses it. Is that?
It replaces some parts of it, but not all of it. Is my understanding. Mist is part of Catalyst. Catalyst is basically a group of things.
Right. That's how I read. That's how I read it.
To make a more feature-rich broadcaster.
Yeah, I thought it was. No. I thought that was a mix of things, but I didn't think it still used each part separately, kind of under with. I didn't realize it was still a group. I thought it just kind of replaced that whole stack as a single component, but
Yeah.
okay. So
And
yeah,
like the entrance to the Go Livepeer is their Mist is doing the HTTP call to Go Livepeer, which is the exact same way I'm pushing the segments to Go Livepeer.
right.
So it is very, very similar.
That's enough for this call. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of confirm that what I read that the right way.
Yeah, and shout out to Marco. He's been helping me with some questions when I'm trying to confirm things of how it's done in real life with Catalyst and Livepeer Inc. and the broadcaster side of it with like from the Catalyst perspective versus mine. So he's been very helpful as usual.
It tends to be. All right. Well, I'm good then. I'll let Titan wrap it up if no one else has anything else to say.
Right on. As always, thank you all for being here and contributing to the water cooler chat and trying to make the future of Web3 bright. So great to have you. Thank you for all the input, and we shall see you next week. So cheers.
Bye, everyone.